in the outermost spiral of the Andromeda galaxy, where stars grew old and dim, there stood a lighthouse. Not a lighthouse of stone and glass, but a living structure of crystallized energy, anchored to an asteroid that orbited a dying red giant. For 3,000 years, the lighthouse had cast its beam across the void, guiding colony ships through the treacherous drift, a region of collapsed space where navigation systems failed and ships vanished without a trace. Keeper Lyra Chen was the last of her line. She had inherited the post from her mother, who had inherited it from hers, stretching back 20 generations to the first human settlers of the outer arm. Each morning, though morning was merely a convention this far from any sun, she climbed the spiral of light that served as the lighthouse stairs and checked the beacon's pulse. Today, the pulse was wrong. The beacon flickered in a pattern Lyra had never seen 3 short pulses, then a long spiral of diminishing light, then darkness. She pressed her palm against the crystal core, and the lighthouse spoke to her in the way it always had, not in words, but in feelings. Fear. The lighthouse was afraid. Lyra pulled up the deep range sensors and saw it immediately. The red giant was collapsing ahead of schedule, not in thousands of years, but in hours. When it went, the resulting shockwave would tear through the drift and destroy every navigation corridor that ships depended on. 3 colony vessels were currently in transit, carrying 40,000 sleeping passengers between them. Without the lighthouse beam to guide them, they would be lost forever in folded space. Lyra ran the calculations 3 times. The lighthouse had enough stored energy to boost its beam to full power, enough to burn a permanent corridor through the drift that the ships could follow even after the star collapsed. But channeling that much energy would consume the crystal core entirely. The lighthouse would be destroyed, and with it, 3,000 years of her family's legacy. She thought of her mother's hands, steady and sure as she had taught Lyra to read the beacon's moods. She thought of her grandmother's stories of the early days when the lighthouse was young and the galaxy was full of wonder. Then she thought of 40,000 people dreaming in their cryopods, trusting that someone out here in the dark was watching over them. Lyra placed both hands on the crystal core and whispered, "Light the way." The lighthouse erupted. A beam of light so intense it could be seen from neighboring star systems tore through the drift, burning a corridor of stable space 50 light-years long. On the bridge of the colony ship Meridian, the navigation officer gasped as her instruments suddenly came alive with a clear, unmistakable path. On the Wanderer and the New Dawn, sleeping passengers never knew how close they had come to oblivion. The beam lasted for 17 minutes, long enough for all 3 ships to lock onto the corridor and ride it to safety. When it finally faded, there was nothing left of the lighthouse but a cloud of crystal dust, glittering in the light of the collapsing star. But the corridor held. Decades later, ships still followed the path that Lyra Chen had burned into the fabric of space itself. They called it the Keeper's Road. And at its heart, if you looked carefully with the right instruments, you could still see a faint blue shimmer, the last echo of a lighthouse that had given everything to show the way home.